The sky over Velthari was always dark and red. The air was dry, and sandstorms came often. This was not a place for a princess. But Princess Soraya stood alone at the top of a broken temple, her long purple robes torn by the wind, her silver eyes looked out into the empty desert. Her family had left her. They said she was barren, she could not give birth. In the royal Orcs family, this was a shame. Daughter who could not produce royal heirs was seen as useless. Her father, King Trellin, said the people would not accept her. Her mother only cried and looked away. Her older sisters avoided her, said it was the way of their ancestors, so they brought her to Velthari, a sacred but forgotten moon. They left her with no guards, no servants, only a few supplies and a broken cum device. Soraya had always been quiet, kind, and gentle, but now her heart was heavy. She looked up at the sky and whispered, "Am I really nothing?" She walked inside the old stone temple. The walls were cracked. The floor was covered with dust. Broken statues of ancient gods stood in silence. There was no light, only cold shadows. Days passed. Soraya lived on dried food and drank from a small underground spring. She lit fires from old wood and covered herself with torn blankets at night. Sometimes she cried. Other times she sat in silence, staring at the stars. At night she heard the cries of desert beasts outside. Velthari was not completely dead. Strange creatures with long claws and glowing eyes moved through the sand. But so far, they had not come too close. Sira tried to repair the broken cum, but she didn't know how. She had never learned technical things. Her life had been full of lessons on royal manners, history, and dance, not survival. One morning, the sky roared. A bright light burned across the clouds, followed by smoke and fire. Something was falling fast. It crashed far from the temple, and the ground shook under her feet. A distant explosion echoed through the canyons. Soraya stepped outside, her heart beating fast. She saw black smoke rising over the hills. Was it a meteor or a ship? She waited until the sun began to set, then took a long staff and climbed over the rocks toward the smoke. Her long silver hair blew in the wind, and sand stung her eyes, but she kept going. After an hour, she reached a small crater. Inside was a wrecked shuttle Terran design, not Orcs. Its wings were broken, and one side was on fire. The air smelled like burning metal and fuel. She gasped. A figure crawled out from the smoke. It was a mantle in black armor with a cracked helmet. He fell to the ground, coughing. Blood stained one side of his chest plate. Soraya froze. She had never seen a human in person before, only in stories. They were known as strong, stubborn, and strange. Many aliens feared them, some respected them. Her father had called them wild, creatures with clever minds. But this one was hurt. The man looked up, his face pale and tired. "Help," he whispered, before falling unconscious. Soraya hesitated. She could leave him, let him die. No one would know. No one would care. But she remembered how it felt to be left behind. To lie on cold stone and wish for warmth. To hope anyone would care. So she dragged him back to the temple. The man woke up 2 days later. He blinked slowly, his hand going to his chest. His armor was removed and his wounds were bandaged with cloth and herbs. Soraya sat nearby, watching. "You are awake," she said softly. He stared at her. "You alien?" She nodded. "I am Soraya, princess of the Orcs house. Or I was." He sat up slowly. "I'm Jacob, Sergeant Jacob Reese, Terran Scout Division." They looked at each other for a long time. He was surprised she hadn't killed him. She was surprised he hadn't tried to attack her. "You saved me," he said finally. "You were dying," she replied. "Still, thank you." That night, they shared food in silence. Jacob used his datapad to check his location. His ship was too damaged to fly again. His emergency beacon was broken too. No one knew he was here. No one was coming. "I guess we're stuck here together," he said with a tired smile. Soraya didn't smile back. "I have been stuck here for weeks. My family left me." He looked at her closely. Why? She looked down. They said I was barren, useless. Jacob frowned. That's stupid. She blinked. What? He shrugged. Where I come from, a person is more than their ability to reproduce. You're alive, you think, you feel? That matters. Asira felt something strange in her chest. No one had said such words to her before. Over the next few days, they worked together. Jacob built a better fire pit, repaired part of the roof. He made a water filter, used scraps from his ship to make a simple motion sensor around the temple. Soraya gathered herbs, cleaned wounds, and cooked food. She listened to him tell stories about Earth, about rain and music, about birds and giant oceans. She began to smile again. One night a pack of desert beasts came close. Jacob grabbed his rifle and stood guard. Soraya stood behind him, holding a torch. The beasts came, but Jacob shot near them, scaring them off. He didn't want to kill unless he had to. Afterward, Soraya placed her hand on his arm. Thank you. He looked down at her. I told you. I won't let anything hurt you. She felt warm again. Not because of the fire, but because, for the first time in her life, someone had chosen to protect her, not for duty, not for power, just because he cared. The sun rose over the desert of Veltheri, casting long red shadows across the sand. The wind howled softly, carrying grains of dust through the broken windows of the temple. Inside, Jacob sat near the fire, carefully checking the energy cell of his rifle. His face was tired, but focused. Across from him, Soraya was boiling roots in a clay pot. The smell of herbs filled the room. They had fallen into a routine. Jacob protected. Soraya cared. He taught her how to use some tools. She taught him which plants were safe to eat. They shared stories, laughter, and silence. One evening, Soraya brought him a small stone carving she found in a nearby ruin. It showed two figures standing side by side, one tall, one small, both holding weapons. I think it's a guardian and a queen, she said quietly. Jacob took the carving and smiled. Then I guess I'm the guardian. Soraya looked at him. Her eyes soft. You are more than that. Days passed. Jacob worked on fixing his long-range communicator. He opened the panel and connected wires, his hands moving with skill, but the damage was deep. The antenna was fried. He needed better parts. I might be able to rebuild something if I reach the crash site again, he said. Soraya frowned. It's dangerous. The beasts I know, Jacob nodded. But if I don't try, we're stuck here forever. She looked worried. Then I will go with you. Jacob raised an eyebrow. You sure? Sura stood tall. I was left to die on this moon, but I did not die. I will not hide anymore. Jacob chuckled. All right, princess, we go together. The next morning they left the temple. Jacob wore his armor and carried his rifle. Soraya wore desert robes and held a long spear. The journey to the crash site took hours. The sand was hot and wind whipped around them, but they kept walking. Finally, they reached the wreck. The shuttle was even more broken than before. Sand had buried part of it. Black smoke no longer rose, but the metal still smelled burned. Jacob climbed inside and began searching. He pulled out wires, batteries, and signal chips. Soraya stood guard outside, watching the horizon. Suddenly, she heard a sound, a deep hum. In the sky, she looked uphand, froze. A ship, small, sleek, and painted in the royal silver of Orcs design. Her people, they had found her, she shouted. Jacob! He rushed out of the wreck. The ship hovered above them, lights blinking. Jacob grabbed his rifle. Friend or foe? Soraya's heart pounded. I don't know. The ship landed nearby. The ramp lowered. 3 figures stepped out, all in silver armor, faces hidden behind helmets. One of them held a long energy spear with royal markings. Jacob raised his weapon. Stay behind me, the lead figure spoke. By order of the Orcs royal house, surrender the exile. Soraya stepped forward. You came to bring me back? The figure removed his helmet. He was an old advisor named Vector. He had served her father for many years. You should not have survived, princess, he said coldly. You were left with honor, quietly. But now there are whispers. Soraya's face turned pale. You want to silence me? Jacob stepped in front of her, over my dead body. Vectarn smirked. That can be arranged. Without warning, the soldiers raised their weapons. Jacob fired first. The fight was fast and brutal. Jacob rolled across the sand, firing controlled shots. His rifle beam hit one soldier's shoulder, burning through armor. Soraya spun her spear and struck another, surprising him with her speed. But the last soldier, Vector, moved like a ghost. His energy spear hummed and clashed against Jacob's rifle. Sparks flew. You are nothing but a Terran dog, Vectarn hissed. And you're a coward who kills unarmed girls? Jacob growled. They fought hard. Jacob's armor was dented. Ah! Blood ran from a cut above his eye, but he didn't fall. He blocked, struck, moved. Soraya grabbed a fallen blaster and aimed it at Vectarn. Stop, she shouted. Vectarn turned. Too late, she fired. The blast hit his chest and knocked him backward into the sand. Silence, only the wind spoke now. Jacob limped toward Soraya. You okay? She nodded. You? I've had worse, he said with a half-smile. They stood over the fallen soldiers. Sira looked down at Vectarn's still body. My own people tried to kill me. Jacob put a hand on her shoulder. They're not your people anymore. She didn't cry. She just stood there, strong. They returned to the temple with the parts Jacob had collected. That night he worked for hours, blood still on his hands. Soraya cleaned his wounds while he connected the wires. Finally, the come. System lit up. He sent a distress signal. Terran Scout Unit 9, requesting evac. Hostile contact to survivors. Altari Temple ruins. Then they waited. Jacob leaned back. If they don't come in a week, I'll build a beacon. Next, Sira sat beside him. You saved me again. He looked at her. You saved me too. Don't forget that. She was quiet, then asked Jacob, what happens if no one comes? He looked at her carefully. Then we keep surviving, together. Her hand touched his. I think I would like that, she said. Jacob didn't speak, but he didn't move his hand away either. In the days that followed, they repaired the temple bit by bit. Jacob trained Soraya how to shoot better. She taught him a song from her childhood. Sometimes she would wake up screaming, haunted by dreams of betrayal. Jacob was always there to calm her sometimes. He would sit alone outside, staring at the stars, wondering if Earth still remembered. Soraya would sit next to him in silence. They didn't speak of love, not yet, but something warm was growing between them, stronger than fear, stronger than sorrow, hope, real living. Hope. One night, as they sat by the fire, Soraya looked up. Jacob? Yeah. Why do you keep protecting me? He thought for a moment. Because no one else did. She looked into his eyes, and for the first time in her life, she smiled, without sadness. The days passed slowly on the desert moon of Velthari. The sun was hot and harsh, but the nights were cold and dark. Princess Soraya and Sergeant Jacob Reese stayed close to the temple, working together to survive. Jacob fixed the damaged device. He used wires, small tools, and parts from the crashed shuttle. He sent signals into space, hoping someone would hear. Soraya helped by gathering food and water. She learned how to use Jacob's weapons better. She even practiced shooting with a blaster, surprising herself with how fast she learned. One afternoon, while Soraya was exploring near the temple, she noticed strange footprints in the sand. They were fresh and big. Her heart beat faster. She ran back to the temple and told Jacob. Hunters, she said in a low voice. They are coming. Jacob looked at the tracks. Not just anyone. These are professional soldiers, Sira nodded. They want to kill me. Jacob stood up quickly. We have to prepare. That night, Jacob set traps around the temple, placed wires that would make noise if someone stepped on them. He hid motion sensors and built a small alarm system. From scrap parts, Soraya cleaned her spear and checked her blaster. She did not want to run this time. "I'm not a princess who hides," she said. Jacob smiled. "Good, because I'm not a soldier who gives up." He sat by the fire waiting. The stars above were bright, but their eyes were on the dark desert. Suddenly, they heard voices, soft, careful footsteps. A shadow moved near the entrance. Jacob whispered, "Get ready." The attackers came quietly, wearing black armor that blended with the night. They had helmets with red lights and weapons that glowed faintly. Jacob stepped out first and fired a warning shot. The hunters did not stop. They advanced with speed and skill. Soraya ran forward, her spear shining under the moonlight. She was quick and brave. The fight began. Jacob fought fiercely with his rifle, taking careful shots. His armor helped him block some blows. Soraya was faster, dodging attacks and striking with her spear. One hunter came close to Jacob and tried to stab him, but Jacob grabbed his arm and twisted. The hunter fell. Soraya fought 3 attackers at once. She was strong, but tired. Jacob saw her struggle and shouted, "Soraya, fall back." She shook her head. "No, we fight together." Suddenly, the leader of the hunters stepped forward. He was tall and wore a special silver armor with the royal symbol of the Orcs family. Jacob recognized him from the previous fight. It was Vek-Tarn.Ve. Catern smiled cruelly. "You should not have survived, princess. The royal house wants you dead." Soraya's eyes filled with anger. "I am not a mistake." Jacob raised his rifle, ready to protect her. Vek-Tarn charged at Jacob with his energy spear. Jacob dodged and fired. The spear hit the ground and exploded in sparks. They fought face to face. Jacob blocked strikes and swung his rifle like a club. Vek-Tarn was strong but tired. Soraya took the chance. She threw her spear at Vek-Tarn's side. The spear pierced his armor. He screamed and fell to the sand. The other hunters stopped and ran away. Jacob was hurt. Blood dripped from his arms. Soraya ran to him. "Jacob, you're bleeding." He smiled weakly. "It's nothing, I'm okay." She looked at Vek-Tarn lying on the sand, breathing hard. "Why do they hate me so much?" she whispered. Jacob helped her sit down. "Because you threaten their power. You show them they are wrong." Soraya looked up at the stars. "I will not be afraid anymore." Jacob touched her hand gently. "Promise. No one will hurt you if I'm alive." The next day, Jacob finished fixing the cum device. He sent a new message, describing their situation and the attackers. Hours later, a small Terran ship answered. "Scout Unit 9, we hear you." "Help is coming," the voice said. Soraya and Jacob smiled, but they knew this was not the end. Vek-Tarn and the royal house would try again that night. As the fire burned low, Soraya looked at Jacob. "Why do you stay? You could leave." Jacob shook his head. "Not leaving, my friend, and you're more than a princess to me now." Soraya smiled softly. "Thank you, Jacob." He held her hand. "We survived together." The first time, Soraya felt hope, and the desert moon did not seem so lonely anymore. The nights on Velthari were colder now. The wind blew harder, and the stars shone brighter. Princess Soraya and Sergeant Jacob Rees sat by the fire outside the temple ruins. The silence between them was comfortable, like old friends who did not always need words. Jacob was still weak from the fight with the royal hunters. His arm was bandaged tightly, but he smiled when Soraya brought him a warm drink made from desert herbs. "Thank you," he said softly. Soraya looked at him. "You saved my life many times, Jacob. Now it is my turn." Jacob shook his head. "You don't need to save me. You already do." Soraya blushed and looked away. Days passed quietly. The distress signal Jacob sent had reached the Terran fleet, but help would take time to arrive. Meanwhile, Soraya and Jacob focused on surviving and repairing the temple. Jacob taught Soraya how to aim better with the blaster and how to read a star map. She listened carefully and practiced every day. Sometimes Jacob would laugh when she missed the target. "You are stubborn, princess," he said with a grin. Soraya smiled back. "And you are patient, soldier." One afternoon, Soraya found an old book hidden in the temple ruins. It was written in the ancient Orcs language. She showed it to Jacob. "I don't understand this," she said. Jacob studied the pages. "Maybe it's history or stories." Soraya nodded. "My family values history, but they never told me these stories." Jacob said, "Maybe you can write your own story now." That night, Soraya had a dream. She was a child again, playing. In the royal gardens, her mother smiled and held her hand. Ash. Her sisters laughed and called her little star. She felt happy, but then the scene changed. She was alone in a dark room. Her family whispered cruel words. They said she was worthless. She was weak. She was a mistake. Soraya woke up with tears. Jacob was there and gently touched her shoulder. "You're safe now," he said. "No one will hurt you here." Soraya wiped her eyes. "Thank you, Jacob. You make me feel like I matter." Jacob looked at her with kind eyes. "Because you do." Over the next weeks, their bond grew stronger. They shared stories of their worlds. Soraya learned about Earth with its blue oceans, green forests. Jacob learned about Orcs' traditions, their art, and their harsh rules. They laughed, trained, and sometimes sat quietly watching the stars. One evening, as the fire burned low, Jacob looked at Soraya. "Do you ever feel lonely?" he asked. She smiled sadly. "Always. But with you, the loneliness fades." Jacob took her hand. "You're not alone anymore." Soraya looked down, then back at him. "Jacob, I don't want to be just a princess who was left behind." Jacob smiled warmly. "You're not just that. You're strong, brave, and kind. It's more than your family ever saw." Suddenly, the sky flashed with a bright light. A ship approached this time, a large Terran cruiser. Jacob stood up quickly. Help has arrived. Soraya's heart beat fast. The ship landed nearby, its engines humming softly. From the ramp came a group of human soldiers, medics, and officials. Jacob greeted them. "We're here. Princess Soraya is safe." Commander stepped forward. "Princess Soraya, you are welcome on our ship. We will protect you." Soraya looked at Jacob. "Will you come with me?" Jacob smiled. "Where you go, I go." The next days were busy. Soraya said goodbye to the temple and Velthari's harsh desert. She looked back one last time, feeling both sadness and hope. On the Terran ship, she learned about new technology, new ideas, and new friends. Jacob stayed close, always watching. Over her, one night Soraya found a quiet moment alone. She whispered to the stars, "I am not barren. I am not alone. I am alive." Jacob joined her and held her hand. Together they looked at the endless sky, and for the first time, Soraya dreamed. Not of exile, but of a future. The Terran ship moved smoothly through the cold darkness of space. Inside, Princess Soraya sat by a large window, watching stars pass by like tiny diamonds on black velvet. Her silver eyes reflected the endless sky. Next to her, Sergeant Jacob. Reese quietly adjusted the controls of a small device, his face calm but thoughtful. It had been weeks since they left Velthari, the desert moon that had been both a prison and a battleground. Now, Soraya was on a new journey to find a home where she was not judged by ancient laws or cruel traditions. Jacob looked over at her and smiled softly. "How are you feeling?" Soraya turned her eyes to him, stronger, but still unsure. Jacob nodded. "That's normal." "You've been through a lot," she laughed quietly. "Yes, I was a princess who was cast away. Now I'm just a woman learning to live." Jacob reached out and took her hand. "You're more than that." Soraya squeezed his hand gently. "You are more than a soldier." Life on the ship was different. There were no sandstorms, no deadly beasts, no endless red skies. Instead, there were soft lights, gentle voices, and people who welcomed her with respect. Syria learned quickly about Earth culture and the many planets the Terran fleet protected. She was fascinated by stories of distant worlds, strange creatures, and powerful technology. One day a doctor came to see her. He was kind and patient, explaining tests and answers she had long feared. "Princess Soraya," he said carefully, "we have looked at your biology. You are not barren, your body is healthy, you have a unique condition that was misunderstood by your people." Soraya's eyes widened. "So, I can have children?" The doctor smiled warmly. "Yes, with the right care, you can." Tears came to her eyes. For the first time, hope filled her heart. Jacob stood nearby, watching her. He reached out and held her hand. "You see," he said softly, "you are not broken." Soraya nodded. "I was never broken. I was only judged." The voice was low. "People can be wrong, but you are strong enough to show them the truth." Days turned to weeks. Soraya grew stronger. She trained with Jacob and other soldiers, learning to fight and defend herself. She found joy in small things: music, laughter, the warmth of friendship. She began to speak to others about her story about exile, fear, and hope. Many listened, inspired by her courage. One evening, as the ship drifted near a peaceful planet, Soraya stood on the observation deck. Jacob joined her, his eyes full of quiet admiration. "Jacob," she said, "I want to thank you." "For everything," he smiled. "You don't have to thank me. I chose to protect you." She looked into his eyes, her voice soft but sure. "Will you stay with me? Not as a soldier, but as a partner." Jacob's smile grew. "Always." They stood together, dumb, watching the stars. The Terran fleet soon offered Soraya a new title, not as a princess of a broken family, but as a peace ambassador. She would travel to different worlds, speaking for those who were lost or cast away. Jacob became her protector and companion. Traveling with her wherever she went, they faced dangers and challenges, but together they were strong. One day a message came from Velthari. It was from a young sister Soraya had not known she had a child raised far away by the royal house. The message was simple: "We were wrong. Come home." Soraya read the words carefully. She smiled but shook her head. "No," she said softly. "My home is with those who love me." Jacob took her hand, "And with those who choose to walk beside you." Under the endless stars, the barren princess was no longer alone. She was loved, protected, and free. Her story was not one of exile, but of hope, of strength, of a human soldier who saw her worth, and a princess who found her true family.